A CV is one of the most important tools that you will use to navigate the world of work. Think of your CV like a marketing tool. It's the way you'll quickly and efficiently tell potential employers your life story. What do we mean by that? Well, a CV will generally include all the relevant details about your life, educational, and work experiences. In addition, you need to also be able to show how you are unique. Yes, you'll highlight your skills, your work experience, and your education, but you'll always want to stamp your uniqueness into the document. So the recruiter needs to get a sense of the kind of person that you are, not just what you've done or where you've studied. Every time you submit a CV for any position, you need to make sure that you tailor it for the job you're applying for or the company you're applying to. If you're handing out 100 identical CVs to potential employers, you're wasting a valuable opportunity. If you can show you've tailored your CV specifically for the person reading it by showing them the things they'd be most interested in, you're well on your way to making that good first impression. Ask yourself, what shows off the strengths and experiences that this potential employer would find most interesting or relevant to the role you're applying for? There are a few more really important guidelines to consider when you're putting together your CV. The first is that language is key. You should always try to be as succinct and to the point as possible. Avoid unnecessary fluff. Your language should also use the appropriate professional tone. Also, ensure your grammar and punctuation is on point. No employer is going to take your CV seriously if it's riddled with basic errors or if it's just a directionless wall of text. The second guideline to consider is that words matter. You should choose the words you use carefully to make the most impact. And always try to use power words that reinforce your tone and message. The third guideline is that your CV should not be too long. A general rule of thumb is to try and stick to 2 pages. However, if you have quite a bit of work experience or activities, you might need to let your CV run into a third page. But just make sure that the increase in your CV length is as a result of the amount of work experience and activities you include, and not a result of superfluous job descriptions. Don't increase your CV length by using long-winded explanations and repeating yourself in an attempt to oversell your skills. The fourth and final guideline is to consider that you should follow a style guide. Use a single clear font, one font size, and make sure that your layout is consistent. Your CV should be divided into multiple sections with clear headings. Each section should look professional, clear, and be easy to read. If an employer wants to immediately know where you studied, they should be able to find that information immediately. Thus, a clear and logical approach to your CV is essential. Sections should be your personal and contact details, education, work experience, and references. Additionally, you can include sections like skills, leadership positions, memberships, and other activities if they are relevant. You can also include a personal statement, especially if you do not attach a cover letter. When considering whether or not to include a section, say leadership or club involvement, remember that recruiters do not spend hours on each CV that they read. It's a constant juggling act to try and highlight your strengths without making your CV too lengthy. So if you don't have any leadership roles but are involved in numerous clubs and societies, just skip the leadership section and just include your activities. This will highlight your teamwork skills, altruism, and dynamic personality instead of highlighting your lack of leadership roles. Let's take a closer look at each of these sections. Your contact details must always list your full name, your phone number, and a professional email address. You can also include your full address or just a more general location, like your city and province. Make sure that these are all ways in which a potential employer can contact you directly. So, for example, don't use a friend or family member's cell phone number unless absolutely necessary. For your education section, You always start with your most recent educational achievements and work your way back chronologically. Only include important subjects or modules, as you don't want to inundate the potential employer with thousands of minuscule details. In this section, you can also take the time to highlight any educational awards you received. For work experience, you want to include all your full or part-time jobs, as well as any internships. Make sure you include a brief description of the relevant responsibilities and skills in each position. Include any volunteer positions here as well. If you include a skill section, use it to highlight all the skills you possess that are relevant to the role you are applying for. Make sure you provide evidence for when, where, or how you develop these skills. Do not make any unsubstantiated claims. For references, you want to list at least 2 to 3 referees. It is important that these are people you have dealt with in the professional and academic spheres or through your volunteer work. You want to avoid using friends or family as a reference. Also, it's very important to make sure you get permission from your referees before you include them in your CV. And make sure you provide up-to-date contact details for referees. So, what shouldn't you include in your CV? There are a list of things most employers find unnecessary, so make sure you avoid the following. Reasons for leaving your past jobs. This is something that can be addressed in your interviews. Personal information like your political affiliation, marital status, your age, your religion, your gender, your current salary, any irrelevant hobbies, number of dependents, or even a photo. Race and gender can usually be excluded. However, in some instances, it may be beneficial to include. For example, when applying for an employment equity position, it might be in your favor to include your race and your gender. If you're only recently graduating, you could include your part-time job serving coffee or waitressing or delivering pizza. But as your career progresses, the part-time jobs you had in high school become less relevant. Also, if you're fortunate enough to have quite a bit of work experience, just select the work experience that is most relevant to the job you're applying for. In general, you also want to try and avoid exaggerations of your skills, your competencies, and also do not outright lie in your CV. Make sure that you don't repeat yourself. Again, you only have 2 pages available to you to showcase your skills, so don't waste it by saying the same thing over and over. Don't use unnecessary words, abbreviations, jargon, or slang. Again, this keeps with the theme that your CV needs to be professional and succinct. Don't use any elaborate headers, footers, and fonts. Keep the design and layout of your CV professional, simple, and clean, unless you're applying for a position as a fashion designer or something in graphics. Try to avoid really bold designs with fancy fonts and extravagant and complicated layouts. Most times when you're putting together an application, you'll always want to send a cover letter along with your CV. This document's primary job is to introduce you to the employer as well as cover a few important issues. What are you applying for? Why are you applying? Why should they be interested in you? This is where you have a chance to really speak directly to a potential employer and motivate them as to why they should consider you. Make sure you discuss your motivations, your passions, and put your personality in there. As with a CV, you want to make sure each cover letter is uniquely tailored to the employer you're applying to. If you're copying and pasting the same cover letter over and over, you might as well not bother with one at all. Your cover letter should be a 1 page long document and roughly around 450 words long. You should have 3 to 4 paragraphs and the format should be professional. This means you will have a formal greeting and a formal closing, along with adding a named recipient. When using a named recipient, remember to sign off with yours sincerely. And when using something more general like Dear Sir, Madam, remember to sign off with yours faithfully. The language here is a little more flexible and you can try to mirror your writing style to the type of organization you're trying to join. Always be clear and concise. Your cover letter will follow the structure of a typical professional letter. Include your address on the top right, followed by the date, and include the address of the recipient on the left. Your first paragraph is going to provide a brief introduction by stating what you're currently doing and which position you're applying for. Note that you do not have to begin with "my name is." In the second paragraph, you want to explain why you want to work for the company. Use this paragraph to demonstrate that you have researched the company and have a good understanding of the industry, the operations, and perhaps even the company culture. Next, you want to demonstrate that you understand what the position requires by highlighting your skills or experiences that will make you suitable for the position. Check this against the listed requirements in the job advert. Your last paragraph will be a closing that thanks the reader for taking the time to consider your application and also signals your enthusiasm for an interview. The idea of summarizing your life into a few pages while still managing to catch the recruiter's eye can be a daunting task. I hope this video has helped you realize how important it is to prepare a well thought out CV that speaks directly to the position you are applying for. Take a look at the accompanying samples, which will provide you with a quick reference to layout ideas and important aspects of the CV content.